Okay, so you should have read to page 50 by now, and you should also have a much better understanding of the protagonist, our narrator, Christopher John Francis Boone. You've no doubt noticed that he's on the autism spectrum. I want to note, though, that autism is indeed a spectrum, and so do not think that understanding Christopher Boone is equal to understanding autism. Mark Haddon, the author of this book, is very clear in interviews that he is not an expert in neurodiversity and that he does not think of Christopher's defining attribute as autism, but rather he thinks about Christopher as a mathematician with behavioral issues. Okay, let's get back to thinking about the story as a murder mystery, which he tells us pretty quickly at the start of chapter 7 that this is his intention. If we just look at the first 2 chapters, or first 3 pages, we understand that he is both extremely reliable as a narrator and extremely unreliable. We can trust him to be detail-oriented, as evidenced in the first chapter. We can trust him to be honest. A bit later, in chapter 37, for example, he tells us straight up, "I do not tell lies," and I personally believe him. He seems incapable of telling lies. In fact, in chapter 29, he explains that he can't even use metaphors because he considers them to be lies. But he also tells us exactly how we cannot trust him. In chapter 3, the second chapter, he tells us directly that he's unable to read social cues. So we can't trust him to read people's emotions, intentions, or motivations. He's honest, though unreliable. Like, he sees his father crying in chapter 41. He knows that tears means that somebody's sad, and he tries to think about why his father might be sad, and guessing it's because of Wellington. The father says, yeah, it's about Wellington, but we know that it's not. I mean, why would his father, who just had to bail his kid out of jail in a really emotional scene, be crying because the neighbor's dog is dead? That ain't it. Christopher is easily misled by lies. We can't trust him. And that's one of the cool parts of this book. We only get information about this world from the narrator, and we are kind of better at understanding what is going on than he is. So, have you solved the murder yet? Another thing to point out about these opening chapters is how Christopher responds to emotional situations. The first chapter ends with him petting a dead dog, a dead and bleeding dog. The second chapter is about emojis. He just doesn't stay in emotional spaces too long. The fourth chapter, to give another example, ends with him getting so frustrated that he hits a cop. The fifth chapter is about jokes. See what I'm getting at? He escapes from emotional situations by changing the subject. I mean, there's a scene with him sitting in the back of a police car and on his way to jail, and he starts talking about his relative position in the universe. I would be pretty stressed out in that situation. Christopher is thinking about the stars. He avoids emotional responses and finds comfort in logic. Which brings me to my final thoughts about these chapters. Christopher is, as his creator, Mark Haddon, has noted, a mathematician with behavior problems. One of Christopher's primary thinking tools is called deductive reasoning, which is what mathematical proofs are based on. Since this is an important technique in the book, and important to the way Christopher's mind works, I figure I'll take some time to explain it. Deductive reasoning is when the truth of the premises necessitates the truth of the conclusion. Maybe it's best I give an example. The classic example is this. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. So this progression of statements has 2 premises. All men are mortal, and Socrates is a man. If we accept these premises as true, then I have to accept the conclusion, Socrates is mortal, as true. Logically, it has to be true. So let's look at chapter 71 together. Pause if you need to get your book and find a chapter. 4 paragraphs into this chapter, Christopher says he's going to prove to us that he is not stupid. He says, next month I'm going to take my A level in maths, and I'm going to get an A grade. No one has ever taken A levels at our school before. This is his proof that he's not stupid, and it's a conclusion that he has come to based on a set of premises. The unspoken premise, which, if we're being fancy people, we will call an enthymeme because that's what Aristotle called it. So we start with an enthymeme, that is, only smart people take an A level in math. We know this is assumed because he says that no one has ever taken an A level at his school, so it must be exclusive and it must be difficult. We can now assume that no stupid people take an A level in math. So if we start with that premise, we have the following arguments. No stupid people take an A level in math. Christopher takes an A level in math. Therefore, Christopher is not stupid. QED, as Euclid would say. That's a math nerd reference. For those of you who think that us humanities teachers can't dabble in math history, you can't put me in a box. Notice, if we accept the first two premises as true, then we have to accept the truth of his conclusion. He's not stupid, and he's proved it to us as any good mathematician would. When you sit down to write a paper 1 exam on this someday, you may want to keep deductive reasoning in your pocket. Not your literal pocket, that would be cheating. Your metaphorical pocket, a pocket in your mind. Deductive reasoning is a big part of how Christopher is characterized, and this characterization establishes him as a logical and often unemotional character. Okay, that's enough for this video. I still don't know how to end these things. Like, subscribe, comment.